Next on stage is Retina Turner, Principal, Cyber Risk and Senior Cybersecurity Analyst at Risk Mitigation Consulting. Retina will be presenting a dependency mapping within the Marine Corps, a risk-based approach to securing critical missions.
Thanks, Mike, Margot, and the entire Security Week committee team for just giving me the opportunity to be up here and share knowledge, exchange knowledge with a lot of my peers and my friends and my family members that I've met here this week. Appreciate you, Wade, and the audiovisual team for that intro. What a way to come in, right? Brian gave me a hard act to follow, with Eye of the Tiger, but I think I'm ready to accept the challenge. Well, I've met quite a few people here this week, and we've had some pretty good conversations along the way. One of those things, let's all say it together, we have a few weeks left. We're going to hold our horses and say, why do we keep putting ourselves in this situation? What am I talking about? That looming government shutdown. Why do we, as the U.S. government, continue to put ourselves in this situation when so many other individuals, so many other countries have to do the same thing? That's create a budget. But of course, I'm not here today to talk politics with you. So what does that have to do with our topic of the day, dependency mapping within the Marine Corps? The Marine Corps, in relation to several other DoD agencies, the Marine Corps is very small, which would imply, because they're so small, they have a very small slice of that budget, right? So we're not like the Army, the Air Force, or even the Navy, that maybe they have a few more resources to kind of leverage on. Marine Corps needs to make strategic decisions, need to make wise decisions on how they allocate those limited budget or that limited resources to focus on what's important, right? So maybe that's something that you can kind of relate to, whether you're in the commercial sector or the federal government or whatever company you're here to represent this week. The budget that's allocated specifically, not just across your entire enterprise, but that small cyber slice can be very minute or very small. So where we direct those resources, where we direct those funds will be extremely important. Marine Corps has a challenge. So one of the things that we try and do, or what our client is trying to do, is this small limited budget, we need to balance out all of our overall mission, all of these goals and strategies and objectives that we're trying to meet. I may not be able to meet them all on this small budget that's been allocated to me. So where can I direct my funds? So they've elected to take a risk-based approach, and maybe that's something that you can take into consideration as you make these decisions to meet your objectives at your individual company. Got the clicker right, that's a good start. A little bit about Retina Turner. Over 20 plus years ago, when I retired from the Marine Corps, little did I know that the 20 plus years of experience that I did have in the Marine Corps would afford me the opportunity to support both the Navy and the Marine Corps, and even use some of my skills right here in the Atlanta area with Southern Company in the power industry. Over 20 years ago, my career started off as a mainframe programmer. Maybe some of you remember that code back in the day. In programming, I started off with assembler, moved on to COBOL, Fortran, all that mainframe type stuff, and then slowly transition into the PC or personal computer language. That's when, we were moving away from the programs and now, going into things like Ada, C++, using languages such as that. But little did I know that I would have to leverage those skills in 2010 and being exposed to OT or operational technology or looking at some of the ladder logic or some of the different other codes where I need to understand what's going on, why is this happening. Everything is always common sense in some way, or if then else statements. It's all logic. why I want to do this. How do I open? How do I close? So as a Marine Forces Cyber Command, or MAR4 Cyber, if you're in the Marine Corps aspect, I was a blue team member as well, where I helped to defend the networks. While I was in that role in 2010, Headquarters Marine Corps Plans, Policy, and Operation, this department kind of hand-selected select individuals, say, hey, MAR4 Cyber, you're in charge of all your Marine Corps networks. We want to build a comprehensive functional team that span not just cyber, but all the installation protection domains, law enforcement, physical security, the ATFP, or anti-terrorism force protection agencies. We want to combine all of this and form what's called a mission assurance assessment, so we can give the Marine Corps a full holistic view of truly what are our risks out there aboard the installations. A little background, I kind of want to level set a little bit, because if you know anything about the Department of Defense or other agency, it's like learning a whole new language. We make an acronym about everything, okay? We've been talking a lot about, I've heard ICS here this week, and within the Marine Corps, I might refer to that term as industrial control system or an integrated control system. When I look at OT, now we've been briefed a couple of times this week about the transition from ICS over to OT, over operational technology. Well, for today, we're going to talk about facility-related control systems. I'm not sure if anybody even heard of facility-related control systems. Facility-related control system is just a subset of that larger OT environment. And of course, that's a huge elephant. I can't secure or I can't protect everything. So how can I compartmentalize and just take a snapshot or a portion of those critical or essential systems and direct my resources toward those things? But again, you know, we want to standardize. We want to ensure that when I say FRCS across the globe, and I might spend a little bit of time here because I want to level set and make sure we all understand the same thing and we're speaking to the same type of control system. Within the Marine Corps, across the DoD, we have this guideline, this spec, the Unified Facilities Criteria, UFC, and the specific one that I'm going to refer to when it comes to FRCS is UFC 4-010-06. What is that, Tina? That particular UFC is the plan, the design guide to help us sustain or define what is an FRCS. Well, I need a little bit more. I might speak the term FRCS, and we all, you know, understand that now. We understand what the language is. I know what the definition of it, but I need a little bit more information. So when I go installation by installation, and I'm looking at or identifying control systems aboard these installations, everybody can speak the same language. When I say what is a utility control system, what is a building control system, what is the electric transmission and distribution system, when I go to installation X, that same definition as far as describing what that type of control system entails. So the bottom line here, I don't even know what my slide says. I have the definition of it, and where is the definition of the control system and the different types? I need to go to another body. The Office of the Undersecretary of Defense provided us a list of the FRCS master list. So we got to have a baseline. We have to have a level set to make sure, regardless of where I am within the enterprise, one, I know what the definition of FRCS is, those specific ones that's tied to a specific building or brick and mortar structure. And then I know the 60+ different types of control systems that I may identify when I physically go on this site. So when I look at, I like to pick with Southern Company or power industry right now. When I look at the definition within that master list of what is electric transmission and distribution system, that system includes the substations, the switch stations, the transformers, all of these different things to ensure that power is available to my important asset. I want to stop there for a quick moment because I feel like this is a foot-stomping moment. When we go around on our mission assurance assessments, the disconnect that a lot of us have is when they identify a control system, they might just consider whichever brand of middleware or that particular management application that gives me the capability to control said substation or switch station. So by definition in that FRCS master list, again, when we're going on the mission assurance assessment and the methodology that we leverage is we're doing a physical walkthrough from end to end on that installation of exactly what facilities they have. And we're going to go later on into the detailed process of what a mission assurance assessment is. But here on this background, I want to kind of walk through, so what? This is a cybersecurity conference. We all understand cybersecurity controls, and it might vary between my environment and what framework I use as far as the thousands of different types of controls I need to implement to make sure that that particular system is secure or not, whether I'm doing NERC CIP compliance, C2M2, or like I say, leveraging the cybersecurity framework to secure my respective control system. But I want you to walk with me a little bit as far as what does dependency mapping entail? What exactly is the goal? What are we trying to do? We're trying to map end-to-end the linkage between the control system that we just identified aboard the installation and my overall mission. So all of this work that we're doing, or everything that we've been talking about all week, how to apply the necessary controls, what countermeasures we need to put in place to ensure not only the system functions as it's intended to, but it's secure and no unauthorized intruders or somebody that's intending to do us harm can get into our networks and sabotage everything, ruin everything for us. So, but the overall purpose of what we're trying to drive to in dependency mapping is all about the mission. It's the impact. Yeah, I have several, could have hundreds and thousands of control systems aboard the base, but which of these control systems is truly going to impact something important? It's the overall purpose. The Marine Corps has overall missions. Each installation that's out there strategically placed certain locations around the globe, whether it's in CONUS or overseas. There's a reason why that installation exists. Each of those installations have certain missions that they have to report on. Okay? The certain missions, just like with your commercial organization, you have certain missions or objectives you're striving to. Okay? That's the goal, making sure I can make mission. In order to make that mission, there are essential functions. John alluded to this in his brief. There are essential functions, critical tasks, things that I have to do along the way in order for me to make those missions. Well, the systems, and McFly, I'm going to use you, the systems that are required in order for me to ensure my critical tasks or essential functions are available or met so I can make my missions, those weapon systems or those critical systems may reside in certain facilities or buildings aboard the installation, a couple of them. So whether it's the system itself that's in that building or the entire building or the staff that's in there, those facilities are identified as either critical or essential to accomplish the mission. From that facility, every brick and mortar building, if it's going to house personnel, there are certain utilities or building controls, environmental controls required in order for them to function. That particular weapon system that Mr. McFly had actually talked about may depend on power, it may depend on HVAC, it may depend on water for cooling to be available in order for that system to operate within that specific building. Hopefully you're staying with me and you're seeing the linkages here. The critical linkages is the overall mission, essential functions and critical tasks that has to reside in some system or is achieved by having the availability of some building and some system with personnel available. So we got into the building, we're looking at the weapon system that's hosted there. That building, like I say, relies on critical infrastructure. That critical infrastructure may be the particular substation that feeds that building in order to receive the power. It may be the HVAC system that we talked about, where that HVAC system may depend on other control systems. That HVAC system that just happens to be installed, and this is notional, it may not be, but that HVAC system may be water cooled, which means I need the availability of the potable water system, so from the water treatment plant that's distributing water to that facility into the chiller, so I can have my HVAC services running, I have my power running to the facility, all that. So you see the linkage from the mission, the critical tasks and the capabilities that's required, the assets, which is the weapon systems or the things that's in that facility. Those facilities rely on certain infrastructure. That infrastructure, the substations, the switch stations that we talked about, going back now to the definition of what is an FRCS and what is included within that FRCS, is now the switch station, the transformer, the pipe, the distribution line. Each of these things that's required to be available to distribute power from the substation to that critical or important facility is being managed and controlled by a control system, maybe in some other remote location. Okay? So hopefully you were able to follow that narrative or that notional mapping to say, really, what is it that we're doing? Why do I care? Of course, like I stated earlier, we have a limited budget. I cannot secure everything. It's a large elephant. But one thing I need to prioritize, and this is the approach that the Marine Corps is taking, is which of these systems that I need to secure. I know I'm going to need to do them all, but right now, low-hanging fruit, which one would directly provide an impact to my mission? So everything that we're doing here, everything that we've talked today, the security controls that we're trying to apply, the strategy that we implement across the globe, there is a reason for it. There is a reason for it. And we are, we've heard many a times, we are as strong as our weakest link. So when we go out and do the mission assurance assessments, and we're trying to make these linkages out there, we typically go one node out. So the distribution node, or I'm going to stay on power a little bit, the distribution substation is out there, whether I have no idea whether it's achieved its NERC-CIP compliance or not, or how secure that particular environment is. So what is the risk that I'm imposing in the event that my trusted provider, my local utility, if for whatever reason I lose that primary feed and I have no resiliency? How can I sustain? How can I go in island mode? Which control systems do I need? Microgrid, power, HVAC. Which ones are essential to ensure that I meet my goal and maintain my mission? Fair? So what's the issue here? The issue is we lack a lot of skilled people. We talked several times today, and I think it's good to know that it's a common trend across the enterprise. I don't know if it's good or bad, but a lot of us have the same challenges. We go through a lot within the Marine Corps. We train people up. They go really hard out the gate to ensure the control systems that matter or to impact direct mission. We train them up, go through, and make sure we get that magic authorization to operate. I'm about to date myself again. There's several packages. We went from DITSCAB to DIACAB to now, all these acronyms within the Marine Corps, to now RMF, which is the Risk Management Framework, using guidelines, which is standard across the NIST guidelines and everything, to get us to that magic every 3 year, I can now authorize to connect, authorize to operate this particular important control system that's installed on my base. But once you get them all trained up and you went through, jumped through hoops to get this magic, yay, you got a 3-year ATO, now what? There's a lot of requirements to maintain that ATO. To maintain, how do I ensure that this device continues to be secure? That requires specialized skilled personnel. Once you get them, especially within the Marine Corps environment, what we're starting to see is you've invested all of this knowledge into where you're going out to Idaho, Idaho Falls at Idaho National Labs training, you're going to Siemens training, Schweitzer Electronics training, any of these specialized OT companies out there, you get them trained up and then they move on, all right? So it's a people problem to ensure that we got the skilled staff available. It's a process problem because if you go from one installation to the other, until we attack this big beast to say, you're going to do the same thing here at installation X that you do in installation Y by identifying the same types of systems and making sure that all the key nodes that make up that system, that substation, switch station, transformer, everybody, the entire thread is secure, all right? Do we have enough people to continuously monitor, audit these to ensure that the controls that we put in there during the commissioning or when we receive that from the vendors, have we maintained that process to make it consistent from installation to installation? We have the program management office out there. We have teams across the globe now. The FRCS project management office stood up recently. And in Marine Corps Installations Command, this is all in the Puzzle Palace area, in the Pentagon area, where we have teams spread out across the region as subject matter experts, so each installation within that region have touch points to ensure that we all kind of speak the same language, adhere to the same standardized processes. And it's definitely a process. It's in place, it's going. We're definitely nowhere near our finish line, but we're heading in the right direction. Again, focusing on the key nodes. The FRCS dependency mapping process, our Marine Corps client, Headquarters Marine Corps Plans, Policy, and Operations, Puzzle Palace again. They came up with the infinite wisdom. We know cyber cross many functional domains, right? Already within the Marine Corps mission assurance process, they had a consolidated team of all the different installation protection areas. And I'm speaking to law enforcement, talking to physical security, the ATFP, the fire department. We have multiple domains. So it's a team of about 20 individuals, 12 to 15 specifically focused on the assets. So it's a team of individuals going out to every installation throughout the Marine Corps. Why are we going out there? Within this process, 2 to 3 months before we go out there is a mission analysis team. That mission analysis team is actually interviewing, speaking with the different respective tenants aboard that base and finding out what is the overall mission, what has changed. We go out every 3 years. What is the overall purpose of why you operate, which key facilities do you need to accomplish your mission? So mission analysis, and part of the mission analysis process, we have an intel team as well, and they conduct an all-hazard threat assessment. So of course, one of the threats is cyber. Dependency mapping, we are linked in throughout this entire process. So we stay embedded with the mission analysis team as a product of this mission analysis and talking to the different tenants and the commands and determining what are their essential functions. It's also the mission dependency index. A mission dependency index is just a mean, a staff that go out and basically rack and stack like facilities. Of all the facilities that the tenants have identified as critical for them to accomplish their mission, we rack and stack, or the MDI team racks and stack the different facilities so they go out and level set to ensure that everybody's kind of operating on the same field. And this was a critical component to add on into the mission assurance process because there were certain facilities out there, and it's a database of all the real property assets, and of course it's not a real property discussion, but ensuring that the installation staff actually document the key nodes and key facilities that they required to maintain those missions, all of that is tied to the budget. Right? If you have no facility recorded within NFAS or within this authoritative database, going all the way up, they have no idea it exists or that you need it to accomplish your mission. So documenting key facilities and then establishing those linkages between your mission, essential functions, and the fact that you need said building or distribution line to meet your goals needs to be documented, and this is all tied to budget, lifecycle management, and sustainment. Part of the MDI, again, we talked about the racking and stacking and scoring to outline exactly how important this particular facility is in meeting your goal. The next time, now we're physically on the ground. We have all this pre-assessment type information. We've identified the key or the critical missions that the installation relies upon. We've identified what critical and essential facilities they rely on to accomplish these particular tasks and functions. Now I'm physically on the ground doing the risk-based assessment as part of this diverse mission assurance assessment team. Again, FRCS, we go out with our combined comprehensive team, the cyber, and looking at the control systems that this depend on. It's just one little thread, okay? It's one little thread, but we have to balance in and coordinate with our partners, the other installation protection measures, the law enforcement, the physical security teams. So if physical security would stay there for a little bit, we talked earlier, I think Brian kind of alluded to it, how important that we need to have now maybe not only just surveillance and detection measures, but intrusion detections. All of these are physical security measures that I need my physical security guys and those SMEs to come out and kind of validate as well. So I'm looking at it from a cybersecurity perspective, whether they've met the controls or they have countermeasures in place to address this analog or this cellular modem that may provide a pivot point to something important. When we physically go on site, we're again validating what the mission analyst discovered during his assessment or his interviews with them. And then we're validating and say, hey, well, this is a risk that we've identified. We're making sure that all the key components or stakeholders there on site have a clear picture of what those concerns may be. A lot of the documents that we use in order to come up with this plan of action and milestone and the recommendation we provide to the installation, multiple sources. We have the energy security plans out there, the hygiene reports, several different documents, legacy documents, all data mining, getting to the baseline elements of information for each of these control systems. When I say baseline elements of information, I'm saying down to make, model, firmware, software, all of these things, and as we know, based on the CVEs or common vulnerability exposures that might be out there, are key information that we need to know in order to pass that information to the stakeholders, so they know, hey, there's a potential risk out here, but you don't have a team or skilled personnel to go out there and monitor the ICS certs or alerts out there to let me know this legacy device that I have implemented. 3 years ago, I got an ATO for it, but there's a multitude of different vulnerabilities or concerns. We need to ensure that we have the skilled personnel on site to address and mitigate these things. So the whole goal of this is to provide the installation commanders a way to address it. So why does this matter? Okay, the why dependency mapping matters. Bottom line is to mitigate risk. Everything we do is like to protect or defend our nation. We all need this, not just what we provide to the Marine Corps, what the Marine Corps is trying to do, but everybody in this room has a play. When we have, we rely on services from our local utility providers coming in, extremely critical that your system on the commercial sector is secure as well. So we inherit to minimize the risk, to minimize the different attack vectors that are out there. Our end goal, where we're trying to drive to, is it will be, once we start linking things to mission and all of this, and of course, I think McFly, the disclaimer out there, of course, everything that's presented here, all the discussions that we're sharing across the enterprise, it had to be vetted throughout DOD and our, the Marine Corps itself to ensure that we're not disclosing anything sensitive, right? So the outcome will definitely be on the high side. It's all classified information. When we start linking important buildings to systems, to weapon system, now we start, treading a sensitive area. So we want to make sure that that data is protected. But the bottom line, while we're mapping, is to mitigate risk, identify the risk to impact, and focus on all those key control systems that directly impact something important. Thank you. Wasn't that quick, fast, and in a hurry? Hopefully got to the point. The overall goal of dependency mapping is addressing risk to mission and providing our installation commanders or our stakeholders with a tool to make the decision as far as where do we need to direct our funds, where do we need to prioritize. We know that we have limited resources and we can't fix it all. We can't, fix the world. We have a staff of one, a minimal select staff. So that means it's going to take each and every last one of us to come together and work as a team to accomplish this goal. I'm ready for questions. What you got for me? Please, sir.
On the mission analysis and the mission risk assessment steps in the process you put there,
sure.
Are there any industry processes or tools that you guys used for those steps in order to figure out how, what impacts mission, what's mission critical, things like that?
Yes, thank you. So the question was a lot of the tools and the methodology basically that we use going through. There's a combination. So within the mission analysis process itself, there's not a lot of tools per se. It's more installation and physical walkthrough and discussing what the installation commanders or what the documentation that they have to do it. When it comes to the actual mission assurance assessment itself, it's normally your risk, your RMF type stuff. Whatever the authorization team provides, these are all documents that's used as a baseline. So whether there's scans out there, whether we're sitting at the HMI, the human machine interface, or the front end platform and actually doing reports from their work, can they see why is this workstation talking to this workstation and it shouldn't be, or what could be talking out. So the tools outside of the, certain installations have the Dragos platforms out there so we can get the low-level inventory type information from that. But outside of scans and interviews, that's basically the only tools or methodology we use today. Other questions? Yes, sir. Hey, John. I'm well.
I'm assuming that a lot of the documents that you get from EMAS, they're artifacts that were put in from designs?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I got 2 minutes. Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm Blaine. I'm with the MITRE Corporation, and we support government sponsors with very similar problem sets. And one thing I've seen is it's very difficult to find personnel within the services that are really educated on what facility-related control systems are. When they're out there at the installations trying to perform the inventories, what do they even look for? What does this stuff look like? And so I was wondering if you could speak to it all, how the Marine Corps, are you guys seeing a similar kind of problem set? What can we do to address that problem? Because I feel like getting personnel that are trained and qualified, or how can we help push that ball forward? I see that as a really big problem that
I concur. That's why I tried to spend quite a bit of information on that background slide to walk through, because that OSD, that Office of Undersecretary of Defense, that FRCS master list that's published out there, that's the great guide. And that's really what we use right now when we go out across the mission assurance assessment to kind of level set. We need a common description, a common definition of what is FRCS, what does it look like, provide snapshots of components, different field devices, so we can understand, so whether it's the UFCs that we're leveraging or the FRCS master lift itself, it is really a training initiative, a a training scenario where we train each of the assessments, so we standardize and create a standardized, repeatable process. So when I go out there and I say that there is an HVAC control system physically here, I know not just the front end, Metasys, or whatever that may be implemented out there, what is this front end talking to what type of NAE or what type of controller that might be in that particular, that's just one component, that's just one field device. I take that assessor and understand, I need to understand the enclave or the network transport. So from this front end, what network transport is getting me to this supervisory controller, this NAE, and what can I control from this device, what HVAC units, and which specific rooms or data centers or whatever. I need to understand, based on this description, that everything that I just physically walked through for that control system entails the entire thing. That is the control system, all those different devices, all those different field devices that we just talked about.
Great,
Thank you. I appreciate that question. I think I'm out of time. I appreciate everybody.